Hello, we're back for another Bible study. Today, we're going to be going over Genesis chapter 1, verse 3. And I hope that these videos have been beneficial of another view or another way of looking at the scriptures in Genesis. We can see, if we look back, that verse 1 was the introduction. In the beginning, God created heavens and earth, was the introduction of what the story was going to be about. Verse 2 was showing you the condition of that beginning, where things were void. It showed you the condition of the earth. It also showed you the condition of God, about his spirit being relaxed. It showed you the condition of the deep. And so everything, again, has a beginning. And normally in the beginning, there's not a lot of insight. There's not a lot of information. But don't worry. Again, that is normal for a beginning of anything. So verse 3, we're going to talk about inspiration, right? Because some people feel like maybe inspiration doesn't never come to them. But if we look at how a relaxed spirit handles things in a chaotic situation, or in a dark situation, or a place where there's no information, we will see what happens next. Because verse 3 says, then lets you know about a result. After the verse 1 and verse 2, then is a resultive pronoun. God, which is a divine one, said. This said can be something said in your own heart. It can be a thought, a decision that you're making. Let there be light. And there was light. So God allowed the opportunity for wisdom to exist, and there was wisdom. Let there be means that he allowed it to happen. God allowed it to take place. In dark situations, we have to allow light to take place. Sometimes the darkness makes us so agitated that we do not want to allow the light to enter because of the darkness. We do not know how long it took light to show up. It doesn't give us, it came in a hurry or it came in a little while. We just know that it did. But we do know light did show up because it reads, and there was light. So if you're in a situation and you don't have all the answers, don't worry. Just have a relaxed spirit in the midst of the chaos so that the waters don't get stirred up, so your emotions don't get stirred up. And eventually, light will show up. You will get an inspiration. You will get some kind of incoming information to go to the next step. We have to allow light an opportunity to exist. Self-protection stops light to be. When you're trying to protect yourself, it hinders the light. When you're trying to fight the battles yourself, it hinders the light. We are designed in a certain fashion. And this Bible is the instructions on how we work. As we can tell, somebody a long time ago knew that we were going to be in a situation where we didn't have the answers. Because how could we? But also, these scriptures was written so you can understand how to handle those situations when things are not clear, especially in relationships, when you're talking with your spouse or your partner and you don't understand what they're saying. Instead of getting agitated, all you have to do is wait. Maybe not that day, maybe not that hour, it might not even be that week, but God will send you a message to have understanding of what that situation is about. It is not that important to know what is going on at that time. It is our ego and our flesh that wants that instant answer right now. We want it today. But God is a waiting God. And so it takes time sometimes to get that information to come through. With the relaxed spirit, it's easier. Wait on light to come in. It is very easy when you have a relaxed spirit. Sometimes when I look at Buddhist, which is another type of religion, they have that down pat. They want to teach people how to have a relaxed spirit in meditation, because they know that's where inspiration comes from. That's how you reconnect with God. If you can imagine in a speaking situation when somebody's talking, one person talks, the other person listens. That person listening is in a relaxed state. And so they're able to receive the information from the other person. And then when it's time to switch, it goes vice versa. Just imagine if you're talking, if you're not relaxed, you cannot hear God. It takes a relaxed mind. It takes a relaxed spirit in order to hear what God has to say, or to get divine inspiration, or to get a word in, a light to your dark situation. Now, these are things that we want to try to avoid. Here are antonyms for the word relaxed. These are things that are opposite from relaxed. So we don't want to be agitated. That is one word that is opposite. Being agitated, it is hard to get a word in. And so I'm just going to spit off a couple of these other ones. Deliberate, difficult, excited, formal, intolerant, planned, premeditated, rigid, stiff, troubled, turbulent, violent, wild, worried. A lot of these is the opposite of what God's spirit is like. You know, God had a spirit, but also we got to understand that God also had to allow light to enter. And it is easier if you don't have to deal with all these other things for light to enter. If you don't feel a sense of trouble, it is good light to enter. Again, that is the reason why your spirit is very, very important. Your emotions, again, is like the water, and your spirit is the breath of that water. If you're agitated, your emotions will be all over the place. And so that's just, I like to provide the antonym so we know what not to do. It's good to know what to do, but it's also good to know what not to do and what state that we shouldn't be in. The condition of the earth and the darkness didn't have an effect on the Divine One Spirit. Again, his spirit was in a certain condition. And we have to realize if we're not in that condition and we don't get a word in, or we don't get inspiration to come through, then that is pretty much something that we're hindering on our own and has nothing to do with God above, or the God within, but it has to do with you fighting the instruction manual on how to handle certain situations. It is hard for light to come into a difficult, violent, and worried spirit, because what it is that you're not trusting in God anymore. When you start worrying, when you start being violent, you have now become the protector. You have now become the one who's trying to fight your battles. And God has to fight all battles. I know that sometimes we feel unprotected when we're in dark situations. When things are in the beginning, we feel like there's nobody on our side, but we have to trust in the process. If God allowed the light, where did the light come from? That is a good question to answer. If God allowed the light, where did the light come from? Let's say that God already have the inspiration. Sometimes divine beings do not have all the answers. They have to wait for those answers. And God being divine, then we have to look at it in that manner. Just like us, we have a spirit. Just like us, we don't have all the answers. So we have to allow the light to come in. And if we have to allow it to come in, or the inspiration to come in, that means that it wasn't present before. If God said, let there be light, could darkness be present before he allowed light to enter? Again, these are questions that should be asked, or things that should be considered whenever you're studying the Word of God. It is good to ask questions. And again, it's only one verse, but that one verse has a lot of information in it. If you possess light, would you have to allow it to come into existence? Because if you have it, that means it's already existing. If you already have the information that you need, there's no need to allow it to come in. Also, allowing information means that you're not having control over the information being delivered. You're allowing it to happen. That means you're receiving it. And we have to also think of that when dealing with other people. You might come in contact with somebody, and understanding that individual, maybe because of race, color, or maybe because of ethnicity or something like that, there might be some darkness, or there might be some lack of understanding. But if you wait, then there'll be a divine inspiration to come in to help you out with that situation. If you're relaxed in that situation and don't get agitated, then you might be able to see something bigger than yourself in that situation. We might be angry at somebody because of something we don't understand. A lot of times our childhood, there's darkness in our childhood that we don't understand. But we have to still have a relaxed spirit, especially when we're dealing with family members where we might not see eye to eye. We have to have that relaxed spirit. Because again, being relaxed and being calm is always the starting point of where we have to be to get to the next level. Again, verse 1 was telling you the introduction. Verse 2 was telling you the state. It's kind of like the canvas. When we was talking about the picture, there's a canvas and there's an empty canvas. It's void, it's empty, there's nothing on it. But somewhere the artist gets inspiration. And once that artist gets inspiration, then he can proceed with painting the picture. Also with the potter. With the potter, he starts off with clay, a clump of clay, no form, nothing going on with it. But when that potter receives inspiration, his hands will start moving and the potter's wheel will start going, and they can start out creating whatever piece of pottery that they're inspired to create. But again, everything starts off with creation, with not knowing and being in the dark. Did God allow the darkness in the world to enter inside himself? No. God made a choice to allow light inside of himself. Allowing light is a choice. It's something that you have control over. You have to be able to receive information. So, again, you have to be in a certain mindset in order to receive this information. We can learn a lot from these scriptures on how God handles situations. And we can see other people who have put these things into practice, and we can see evidence of what goes on in those people's lives. and it's no different from yours. Did God, with a relaxed spirit, have darkness and allowed instruction to enter into his life? It doesn't necessarily say that God had any darkness, because basically the world had the darkness. Now, it could be suggested because he didn't have the light, the opposite of light is darkness. So we might feel a sense of darkness or emptiness. Again, we might feel a lack because we don't have information that we're without. So God might even share in that same kind of thing where maybe because he didn't have the information, things were dark. Now, this is just another view. You might never hear about God not having all the answers. But in this scripture, if he had all the answers, it would be something that he wouldn't have to allow to happen. And also, too, seeing God as a divine person, a divine being, a person that's live and active, that is doing things. Also, looking in that perspective, then God will be just like you. You and God are one, especially if his spirit dwells in you. His type of spirit is in you. Then that means that y'all are united in that way. Could this divine being be surrounded by darkness, allow light to come forth to uncover what was hidden? You know, there's some things that might be hidden. I mean, you need some kind of inspiration to uncover those things. Maybe there were some things that God didn't understand. And it's okay to think that way, that he had to allow this light to come in. Or it could be written so you can understand how to handle a situation. Maybe God is showing you his process so that you can copy the same process, so that you can get the same answers or get results from what he's speaking or what he's putting in these people's minds in order to write on paper. Because all these scriptures are God inspired. They're divinely inspired. People of spiritual knowledge who understood the things of life were inspired to write and to put things on paper. And so through history, these things have been collected in order to give us inspiration today. God desired light. In order for you to allow light in, it has to be a desire. You got to have a desire to want to receive light in order for light to come in. Did God make a choice to let light inside him exist outside of him into the world? Again, that's a choice. Just like the potter, just like the painter, once that inspiration enters, then you're able to express that inspiration outwardly. I guess that would be another way how the word became flesh. You know, word meaning communication. It can also mean light coming in, that inspired word that came in that nobody could see. You manifested it in the flesh so people can see. A potter, you can't see his thoughts. You can't see what's going on, the inspiration going on inside of him. The painter, you cannot see the inspiration or the words that he's receiving or they're receiving or she's receiving inside of them. But when they express it on the canvas, when they express it on the pottery, on the clay, then you can see what is going on clearly on the outside. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Could God have had a fear of the Lord in his day? Again, another way of looking at something. If he allowed light to happen, where did it come from? Did the Lord send light to God and God received it? Did the Lord send light to the divine being and so the divine person was able to receive it? That's just another way of looking at it, another question that could be asked. Now, antonyms of said, because it says that God said, let there be light. Again, we know what to do, but it's kind of hard to speak when you got mixed signals going on, when uncertainty is around, having feelings of being imperfect, incomplete, and uncertain stops people from speaking. And so that's just another, way of looking at it. Again, knowing what to do is one thing, knowing not what to do, or maybe you feeling those things might give insight into your world. If you let something happen, you allow it to happen without doing anything to stop it or prevent it. You're letting it take place. God said, let there be light. Maybe that was a statement. Maybe that was another divine person speaking to somebody else, letting you know, hey, let there be light. Give in. Accept it. Allow it to happen. And so we're going to look at another anonym of let, and see what we should not do, or if we're not getting any inspiration, maybe these words might help us to understand why we might not be getting that light. We might not be getting that information because we might not be letting it. So antonyms for let: contradict, deny, disagree, disallow, disapprove, fight, halt, hold, invalidate, keep, oppose, prevent, refuse, reject, stop, unauthorize, veto, withhold, buy, forbid, hinder, impede, inhibited, obstruct, sell. So if you find yourself in any of these situations, you are not allowing anything to happen. You're actually hindering it from taking place. Again, even with speaking with individuals, when you start to disagree with them, you are not allowing the light to enter. It's because you're rejecting what they're saying. When you deny another individual, Jesus said, we are the light. We are the light of this world. And so when you deny another individual, you are rejecting that light. You are not allowing that light to enter. So if we individually are the light, and inspiration can also be the light, they're kind of one and the same. When you start opposing things or being an adversary toward it, then you're trying to stop something from happening. And so we don't never want to find ourselves in that situation. So maybe disagreeing with something, we might try to agree with it so we can have some kind of understanding. Maybe they have a different view, and maybe your view might need to be changed a little bit so you can have more understanding. And more information, the better. Because the more information you got, the better decisions can be made. The more people you meet, the more your mind can be expanded, where you're not just in a box with your own ideas and your own thinking. If you didn't let and you deny, fight, and stop, you won't be relaxed, and light or wisdom might be hindered. And so that will be the conclusion of this study. again, for anything to take place, do not be in a situation where your spirit is not relaxed. And please allow people to pour into you. Please be relaxed and still enough so you can receive information.